This card has a 0% usage rate, and somehow it's not even close to being the only useless card we're talking about today. Some Clash Royale cards are absolutely broken, like the Boss Bandit or the Mega Knight, and others are, well, as useless as the firecracker when it freezes and forgets it needs to attack. So today, we'll be going through the most useless cards in every elixir cost in Clash Royale, starting with 1 elixir. Now there's not a lot you can get with 1 elixir. You can get 3 skeletons that are the most OP 1 elixir card ever, and the spirits, but these cards are crucial in Clash Royale. They are the backbone of cycling and provide instant value, except one spirit card in particular that has proven to be the most used 1 elixir card of all time, the Heal Spirit. Now on paper, this card sounds perfect. For 1 elixir, it jumps onto your troops and heals them. It's supposed to keep your push alive and give you that extra bit of health. But in reality, the Heal Spirit fails way more than it succeeds. Most of the time, it does absolutely nothing. The Heal Spirit is extremely unreliable. You play it hoping it heals your push, but it either heals too late or gets countered before it even jumps. You need pixel perfect placement and timing just to get any value out of it. And if your entire push is relying on the small heal boost from the Spirit, maybe the problem is with your push to begin with. And here's the thing, this card replaced the original heal spell, which was literally the first card ever deleted from Clash Royale. Supercell hoped this replacement would make the healing mechanic more used in the game by adding a 1 elixir heal spirit, but then they nerfed it 3 times in 2020 alone. The radius got cut, the healing got reduced, and the damage got nerfed. Now compare that to Ice Spirit or Fire Spirit, both of them always give way more value than their cost. Every single time you play them, they do something useful. But Heal Spirit is a complete gamble. Sometimes it helps, and most of the time it completely flops. And if you need 1 elixir cards for cycling, you're better off using something that gives you some form of value. Next, we have 2 elixir cards, and to be honest, this wasn't a hard choice at all. Every 2 elixir card gives some sort of value for its price. Berserker is a menace, Ice Golem, especially with its new hero form, will be an OP card, and Barbarian Barrel is one of the most used spells / troop. But there's one card that just can't find its place anywhere, the Goblin Curse. This card is what I like to call a gimmick card. It's great for short TikToks, turning 100 skeletons into goblins, or to use for fun in friendly matches. But other than that, there's absolutely no reason for it to be included in any deck, as it provides 0 value if your opponent doesn't have a swarm, or worse, can eliminate your goblins with a spell. When it first released, it was broken because of one thing, damage amplification, which basically acted like a rage spell that also turned swarms into goblins. But Supercell thought that was too strong, so they nerfed it down to 35% before release, and then they nerfed it again down to just 20%. That's less than half of what it's supposed to be. Overall, it's too situational and only does one thing, turns troops into goblins. You're spending 2 elixir on a spell that might not even do what it's supposed to do. And let's be real here, what are the other 2 elixir options in the game? Well, we have the Log, the Zap, and the Barbarian Barrel. All of these cards provide consistent guaranteed value every single time you play them. Meanwhile, the Goblin Curse is sitting here hoping that troops die in the right spot so it can maybe convert them into goblins. The best use case for Goblin Curse is countering Graveyard, and that's it. That's way too niche for a deck slot when you have so many better options at 2 elixir. Next, we have 3 elixir, and this is when it gets tricky. 3 elixir cards are a pain to balance because making a card too powerful at this cost and it becomes broken, make it too weak, and it's completely useless. Which is why cards like the Knight are considered some of the best designed cards in the game. It's the perfect balance of strength, value, and elixir cost. But Void, on the other hand, is actually useless. Void's unique mechanic is one of the reasons it's useless. It creates this dark damage zone that deals 3 waves of damage over 5 seconds, and if there are fewer targets in the radius, each target takes more damage. This makes the card very situational. If your opponent has too many troops down, you can't use it, because it would be a waste of 3 elixir without any meaningful damage done. And if you place it on just one troop, its damage isn't that spectacular to make it worth a slot in your deck. Supercell tried to revive it with buffs, but it's still one of the least used spells in the game. Compare that to Fireball, Poison, or Earthquake. All of these spells provide reliable, predictable value. You know exactly what they're going to do when you play them, and how much damage they will do every time to all troops equally. Void is too dependent on your opponent, too easy to play around, and too unreliable for any serious deck. Now we're getting into the 4 elixir range, and this is where the competition gets really tough. 4 elixir cards need to provide serious value because they're expensive enough to hurt if they flop, but cheap enough that you're expected to cycle them multiple times per match. Hog Rider, Valkyrie, and Mini P.E.K.K.A. are the stars of this group. But then there's one card that somehow managed to become the worst card in the entire game. The Ruined Giant. This epic card targets buildings and enchants a nearby troop to deal bonus damage every 3rd attack. On paper, it sounds like a support tank that could enable some massive pushes, but in reality, this card is too catastrophically bad that it has achieved something truly incredible. A 0% usage rate everywhere. Absolutely nobody uses this card. Not in challenges, not on ladder, not anywhere. First, it only targets buildings. This means that it can't defend troops and can't attack enemies. It just walks past everything trying to get to a tower or a building. so right away half of its potential usefulness is gone. You might argue that, well, that's literally what a hog does. What's the difference? Well, the difference is the damage. At level 11, it deals 80 damage per second. That's pathetically low for a full elixir card, and the enchantment ability proved to be completely useless. Everybody agrees that they have never had a single situation where the ability actually mattered. It's basically irrelevant. Compare that to literally any other 4 elixir card like Hog or the Mini P, or even any other elixir cost card in the game, and the Ruined Giant falls short. Now let's talk about 5 elixir cards, because this one is a perfect example of how Supercell can completely destroy a card through nerfs. 5 elixir is that sweet spot where cards need to be versatile. They're expensive enough that you can't spam them, but they should be powerful enough to swing entire matches. The Prince, Balloon, Witch, Royal Hogs, these cards can single-handedly win you games. But then there is one legendary card that went from absolutely broken to completely useless in less than a year, the Goblin Machine. This legendary dual attack mech was released back in June of 2024. It has melee arms for close combat and a rocket launcher for range attacks. This card was way too powerful at release, and Supercell nerfed it to the ground. Let me walk you through the nerf timeline, because it's honestly insane. June 17th, 2024, the card releases. June 19th, 2 days later, the rocket damage was slashed by 33.5%, attack interval increased, and tower damage cut in half. Then in July, HP gets reduced by 15.5%. October, small HP buff of 5%. January 2025, damage increase, and then October 2025, HP down by 7%, and rocket damage down by another 22%. That's 6 separate nerfs in 16 months. They nerfed this card so many times that it went from overpowered to literally unplayable. The biggest problem is the 2.5 tile rocket blind spot. Any troop that gets too close for the rockets to hit just ignores them completely. Mini P.E.K.K.A. walks right up to it and destroys it. Compare that to other 5 elixir options and you can get way more value and versatility from every single one of them. But to be fair, I think it's the least useless card in this list, but still, for the cost, it earned its place. This was honestly a tough call between the Goblin Machine and the Barbarians, because even though it sounds great, 5 elixir for 5 Barbarians sound OP, but in reality, there are just so many counters that immediately eliminates them before they even cross the bridge, that makes them absolutely useless in any deck. Next, we have 6 elixir. Now we're investing more than 50% of the elixir bar into one troop, but the Barbarian HUD, well, it gives nothing. This is an OG card from the game's launch back in January 2016. It's a spawner building that's supposed to create constant lane pressure by spawning barbarians every few seconds. Even Supercell themselves admitted that it's the worst card in the game in the October 2022 balance changes when they said the cozy barbarian HUD has been the worst card in the game for a long time. We're talking heal spell levels of bad. This is when the barbarian HUD's cost was reduced from 7 elixir to 6, made it spawn 3 barbarians instead of 2, and cut the lifetime down to 30 seconds. And guess what? It didn't help. The card is still terrible. Spawner buildings in general got nerfed heavily since they dominated back in the day, but you still see goblin huts and tombstones here and there today because they each give back actual value for their cost, but the barbarian hut is simply useless on both defense and offense. Now we reach 7 elixir. At this price point, cards need to be an absolute powerhouse. P.E.K.K.A. can shut down entire pushes and counter push for massive damage. Mega Knight is just a jumping freak, and Royal Recruits are a no-skill powerhouse, but Electro Giant unfortunately falls short. Now to be fair, there are only 4 7 elixir cards total in the game, so the competition here is pretty limited, but even with that in mind, Electro Giant is comparatively the weakest of them all. For 7 elixir, he doesn't really do much besides target buildings and zap spawns away, but he will easily take out the Princess Tower if he is ignored. The bad thing, however, is that he can be countered fairly easily with cheap cards like the Mini P.E.K.K.A. or Inferno Dragon for a +3 elixir trade, and especially against long-range troops like Musketeer, Magic Archer or Electro Wizard, he can't do anything. They just stay out of range and chip him down. But that's not all. 7 elixir is a massive commitment. If your Electro Giant push fails, you're in big trouble. Your opponent can rush the opposite lane and you won't have enough elixir to defend. Next, we get to 8 elixir. And here's the thing, there's only one permanent 8 elixir card in the game, the Golem. Now the Golem is a pretty strong card, but the only thing I can say about it is that it's extremely reliant on the entire deck to support it for it to actually do its job. This card requires very specific support cards to function. Without those exact cards, Golem just doesn't work. You're spending 8 elixir on a card that's going to walk slowly towards a tower and die without doing anything. I'm not going to dive deeper into the Golem since it's the only 8 elixir card, but for 9 elixir however, the Elite Musketeers have proven to be useless despite the recent rework. 9 elixir is the most expensive cost in the entire game. For that much elixir, you'd expect an absolute game-winning card, something that can single-handedly turn matches around, something that justifies spending nearly your entire elixir bar. but the Elite Musketeers just don't do that. When they were called the Three Musketeers, they were even more useless. One fireball and they're all gone. But even with the recent rework and buff, they are just too expensive of a card with too little value output for them to work in any deck or any matchup. Every competitive deck runs fireball or lightning or rocket, so you're spending 9 elixir on a card that your opponent can counter with a spell before they even cross the bridge. The recent buff made them survive a fireball plus zap, but even then, it's just not worth it. But since they're the only 9 elixir card, there's not much to compare them with, so these are the most useless cards for every elixir cost. Let me know if you disagree with any of these down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more Clash content.